Hello, welcome back to The Well. Are you ready for part 3 in the series of Guardians? We've talked about Ezer Conegdo, woman being the help that saves, and we talked about Oiko Oras, women being keepers of the home. So then we've specifically talked about helping our husbands, or rescuing them even, and guarding our homes, not just the physical home or being busy inside the home, but watching out, being vigilant about our children. The title of this teaching is A Wise Woman Builds Her House. But I also want to go into Proverbs 31, and not just that, but I'm going to answer a very important question towards the end of the video. So make sure you stay until the end. And the question is the following: what can negatively impact my role as guardian of the home? To begin, it's a very popular verse, but although it's popular, doesn't mean that we need to just brush over it like, oh yeah, I know that. So just please listen to the verse that is found in Proverbs 14:1. And in the King James Version, it says, "The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish pulls it down with her own hands." And also, very common verses that I want to share to consider throughout what we're going to discuss is Proverbs 31. And if you feel like you know it, well then tell me something about the virtuous woman. Is this moment getting awkward? Who can find her? I kind of know it more in Spanish.
Mujer virtuosa quien la hallará, su valor, and
something about joyas and okay. But what do we really know about her? A wise woman builds her house. So how can I be a wise woman? I don't want to tear down my house. I don't want to be foolish. So let's specifically look at characteristics of Proverbs 31 woman, which is the virtuous woman. And I will read several verses, but again, pulling out specific characteristics so that we can be more like her. It says in verse 15, she gets up while it's still night and provides food for her family. So number 1, she wakes up early. The virtuous woman, a wise woman, wakes up early. And number 2, provides for her family. Verse 16 says, she considers a field and buys it. So then she's a woman who takes time to contemplate, even business decisions. She's not impulsive. That we do know about her. She weighs out options. So being prudent oftentimes is making the right choice. Another thing we know about her in verse 17, she sets about her work vigorously. She's hardworking. And we're going to repeat this idea later by saying she is not idle. So she works hard. We know in verse 18, her lamp does not go out at night. Very important, because we spent a whole teaching talking about the woman being the watcher or the guardian of a home. And to say that her lamp does not go out at night, it means to say that no matter what time of the day, she's vigilant. She's watching. She knows. And I don't know about you, but when I was young, I wouldn't, if I didn't feel well or if whatever was happening, I would just go and stand at the door of my mom's room and just go like, "Mom." And I don't even know if you heard me say that. My dad didn't hear it. He would just be like sleeping away. And she would just turn around and be like, "Yes." And I'm like, was she even sleeping? It kind of reminds me of my dogs. It's like they sleep, but they never sleep. Because as soon as they hear something, they quickly jump into action. So again, the virtuous woman, she's vigilant. She's always watching. It says in verse 20 that she opens her arms to the poor, which means she's generous. She considers the needs of others and doesn't just consider them, but does something about it. Verse 21, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. So the virtuous woman, she's prepared. She's not afraid of what can come because she's made provisions. And not just for herself, but it says for her household, all of them are clothed in scarlet. It says in verse 23, her husband is respected at the city gate. She plays an important role in helping her husband go back to Ezer Kenegdo. That's why this is a series, because all of these teachings go back to one thing: the design and role of a woman, my God-given responsibilities. It is my job to stand behind my husband and help him. I once read, I don't think it was true, but it was just like one of those cute things that you read, like anecdote. And it said that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama were in a restaurant. They had like an event, and it was a waiter, and it was Michelle Obama's ex-boyfriend. And apparently, I don't know if this is true. I don't think it was true, right? But Obama says, oh, wow, look, he's a waiter. If you would have married him, you would have been married to a waiter. And then she says, oh, no, like laughing, kind of like, oh, you have it so wrong, Barack. If I were married to him, he would be the next president. And that really impacted me, because it just goes to show that the role that a woman could play. Could it be that the presidents of the United States, even, they made it to where they were because of the woman that was standing behind them? And it's something that I want to consider. Like, in being a better wife, it's also making my husband reach his goals and live out his dreams, helping my kids to be successful, but all those around me. What else do we know about the virtuous woman? It says in verse 25, she is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She is brave and she is confident. The virtuous woman speaks with wisdom. That means that she is wise and she gives good advice. She has good judgment. That's what David said to Abigail. You have such good judgment. The Bible in 2 Kings chapter 4 does a Shunammite woman. It calls her an important woman, a woman of influence. We see that Abigail was described as an intelligent woman. So being a woman of influence, of wisdom, of intelligence, being prudent, making the right choices. This all goes back to a wise woman building her house. Verse 27, and this is a really, really good one because it goes back to the second teaching in Oiko Oros. And it says, she watches over the affairs of her household. She watches and does not eat the bread of idleness. We said she was a hard worker, and now we see that she is attentive. Do you remember when I was describing 3 characteristics of a sheepdog, and one of them was attentive? I mean, I'm not going to be effective if I'm not even aware of what's happening in my household. So I need to be alert, attentive. I need to be involved, engaged with what's happening. I need to be close. And I need those around me to want to be close to me also. And it says, her children arise and call her blessed. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. I mentioned briefly the Shunammite woman, and I did do a teaching. It was Welcoming Blessings, where I specifically talk about what happened. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but a few things from her story that's found in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 through 37. And we see that this woman was barren. She miraculously conceived through the words of the prophet because she opened her home. And as the child grew, one day he became sick. And while the child was sick, it says the father took him to his mother. And I just thought that was interesting how, like, somehow as a mother, I hope to have some kind of extra healing or comfort that I could provide for my child. And so we see the woman, she received the son, and the son actually died in her lap. And then so when he died, she goes to place him in the prophet's room, the room that she created for the prophet. And she immediately goes out to get the prophet, and she doesn't say anything to her husband. We saw this also with the story of Abigail and Nabal. She didn't say anything when she was going to go out to meet David, and she didn't say anything when she came back and he was drunk. And I bring this up because being a wise woman has so much to do with saying the right thing at the right time, having the right attitude. So again, I just want to bring attention to our words, the power of what we speak to our family members. And if people don't believe I'm wise, then my wisdom really won't help them because they're not going to follow my instruction. So I do need to make wise decisions. And if anyone is out there thinking like, wow, I want to be wise, then, there is hope for all of us because I have a very important Bible verse addressing a lack of wisdom. And the Bible tells us in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5, I'm going to read the New King James Version, and it says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." So if you lack wisdom, the Bible tells us to ask God, who gives liberally or generously. And okay, so once again, we were talking about the actions of a woman who is wise and how we have to be careful what we say, when we say it, how we say it. And so I want to go back to the question I asked at the beginning of this teaching, and it was the following: what can negatively impact my effectiveness as guardian or keeper of my home? And there's two Bible verses that really are connected by one word: quarrelsome. And so Proverbs 27:15-16 says, "A quarrelsome wife is like a dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Restraining her is like restraining the wind or grasping oil with the hands." Proverbs 21:19 says, "Better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife." And just to bring this to something practical, if you have a dog or you've been around a dog like this, a dog who constantly barks, no one listens to them anymore because you don't believe that anything they have to say is of importance. And honestly, yes, women are wise, and we have been given a special ability by God to rescue, to save, to help, to guard, to be vigilant, to have wisdom, to make the right choice. But it's my job to harness all of this and not be quarrelsome. If you're really not connecting with the word quarrelsome, let me give you a few synonyms. So some of these I'm not familiar with, but I have a whole list of adjectives that describe or that are synonyms for quarrelsome. And it says argumentative, disputive, contentious, confrontational, captious, factitious, pugnacious, I don't know those, combative, ready for a fight, defiant, hostile, antagonistic, belligerent, militant, warring, fighting, battling. I think we get the point. And let's put this all into perspective, right? God designs woman. He gives her all these great abilities. We're made in his image, his likeness. But woman, she makes the worst choice she could ever make, and she disregards God's command. She eats from the tree. She gives to her husband. God then says, you are to be subject to your husband. He will now rule over you. The Bible tells us to be submissive. So what place does contentiousness, maliciousness, what place does all of these characteristics of a quarrelsome woman have in line with a submissive woman? So keep in mind, what could negatively affect my impact? What's stopping me from being effective, from really giving that advice that people want to follow? It's my quarrelsome nature. It's my nagging. I'm like a drip in a roof in a rainstorm. So take this for the good. See how this applies to you. I mean, I could go over 10 women who made bad choices and 10 women who made good choices. But I think what's more important is that you reflect on the type of decisions that you're currently making. And so there's still one more teaching in this series. So I hope you return next week as we discuss the last component, and it's going to be guardians of my neighbor. God bless you, and I hope you come back to the well to receive more teachings from the Lord. Bye.